I'd like to call this meeting of the Carson City Historic Resources Commission on Wednesday, March 5th, 2025 to order. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Chair Drews,
Here.
Vice Chair Schmitter,
Present.
Commissioner Block,
Here.
Commissioner Darney, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Spielda,
Here.
Commissioner Wright. A quorum is present.
Thank you. Next item we have on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment on items pertaining to the Historic Resources Commission? Hearing none, we'll go to item 4 for possible action. We have approval of the minutes from January 7th, 2025. Everybody read them? We have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes as transcribed by staff.
Motion and second. Okay. All in favor? Or any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is 5A, HRC-2024-0312 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a request for the removal of the cross from the top of the steeple at Brewery Arts Performance Hall, formerly St. Teresa of Avila's Church, on property zone public regional PR located at 511 West King Street, assessor's parcel number 003-207-06. Heather.
Thank you, Heather Ferris, for the record. The former church building was constructed around 1870 and was originally a Gothic revival in style. The building has been significantly altered over time. However, the design of the steeple has remained intact. The Brewery Arts Center is now seeking permission to remove the cross from the top of the steeple on what is now a performance hall. The building was once St. Teresa of Avila's Church, but was deconsecrated over 25 years ago. According to Catholic law, when a church is deconsecrated, items which have been blessed or dedicated to sacred uses should be removed from the old church. The cross and the bell were originally, which was originally housed in the steeple, were not removed at the time that the church moved from this location. In 2001, the Brewery Arts Center was able to remove the bell and return it to the church. The applicant is now planning some routine maintenance to restore the steeple louvers, which have been covered over, and would like at that time to also remove the cross and return it to the church. Staff has reviewed the request and finds that the character-defining features of the building are limited to the steeple and the fenestrations. The building has been significantly altered, and the cross that exists today is not the historic cross. The building was not included in the West Side Historic District nomination. Staff does not consider the cross to be exterior trim, and therefore the guidelines do not require that the cross be retained or replaced. If you believe that it is a character-defining feature, I would suggest handling it similar to other issues where things are reversible, or windows where you've allowed replacement but required storage. Spike McGuire with Brewery Arts Center is here, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Heather. Are there any questions of Heather? Or Spike? Go ahead.
I just have clarification. The bell was removed sometime when John Sheldon was the executive director. 2001 was even before John Procaccini. So the weight of it and everything, they were trying logistically to figure out how to get that out. But they didn't require that the bell go with them. But when the Brewery Arts Center offered it to them later, they were willing to take it.
Thank you, Jed. John?
It's my understanding from several directors that part of the problem was just that they didn't have a cherry picker to get it off. So if they're going to be up there anyway, then it's efficient to do it while they're there. I personally agree with the neighbor's letter, which is it's a little creepy to be in there with stand-up comics and a Christian cross on the top.
Yeah, for the record, we do have one public comment from a neighbor, and I think it's been submitted with the packet. Any other questions, comments?
Just Michelle Schmitter for the record, just glad to hear that we have some great photos of those louver vents and that you're going to combine the two projects. Okay.
Is that part of our, combining the two, is that, it's not part of our,
No, but Heather
Motion.
mentioned, I mean, they're going to have a lift to take off the cross.
So Bill Miles is going to do the construction on the louvers, and he was going to borrow the lift from Sam Landis, and it wasn't tall enough to get up there. And so Bill's just trying to orchestrate his men and the lift, and the louvers are still in there. So they're going to do that.
Okay,
their
I'm
own.
just, for the record, we're approving the
Right.
removal of the cross.
Yes.
The louvers have already been approved, and
To clarify, the louvers are still in place. They've been covered
Yeah.
over, so
Yeah.
it's really more of a maintenance issue.
So, question for you, Mr. Chairman. Didn't this come before us when they removed the 2 brick chimneys and the cross on the back without approval? And we denied the recommendation to remove it then, for the record? Is that accurate?
yeah, we did, and that was based on the fact that most of the churches were congregated in that area, and it kept with the theme of that part of town. We just thought it'd be better to leave it. We can discuss that again or see what the commission members' feelings are. Spike, how's that going to be capped?
Spike McGuire for the record. We were going to do a metal cap that's a similar material to the metal sheeting that is on the steeple currently.
The cap will just go on top of or conform to the existing steeple? Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Um,
I apologize for being late. I'm the one that made the motion the last time that this was denied. This isn't for any religious context, but I still believe that the cross is a character-defining element of this historic building. And I personally will not support removal because it is a character-defining element.
Can I add one thing? I appreciate Don's position, but this is a modern replacement. So character-wise, I don't think there's any historical value to it. If you look at it real close, it's just a pretty, and I don't mean to use the word, but pretty inexpensive sheathing of metal, and it's riveted. So there's no historic there, in my opinion.
Well, just, if it's been on there for over 50 years, does that in itself make it somewhat historic? It's, somebody made some comments that the homeless think it's a church and they're trying to get in and everything. But you can remove the cross, but the steeple's still there. And it looks just like the Episcopal Church's steeple. And that looks like a church. The steeples look like church. So I guess if you take the cross off, they could be confused if it was a Catholic church or a Mormon church. The history of it, Kavanaugh built it. He was very Catholic. Jacob Klein, who was the brewmaster before Arnold Millard, donated stained glass, and I'm quite certain he was Jewish. So there's a lot of stuff to look at it, but you take the cross off, it's still got a steeple, still looks like a church. If you feel creepy about a cross, you should feel creepy about a steeple. I too think it needs to be retained because we let things go all the time that are over 50 years old, and we just slowly erode the history of Carson.
Mr. Chair, I think I'm glad the record will show that Member Schmitz joined the meeting. And I think the applicant was getting ready to speak. You had called him up. I'm not sure he had a chance to speak yet. He did? You didn't have anything else?
Not directly, but I'm happy to answer
okay, that's
any
fine.
additional questions on the
And
matter.
then just for the benefit of Member Smith, in case he missed some of what the planning manager said, the staff's position is this is not character defining, recognizing there's disagreement on that, and some may find it to be character defining, others may find it to not be character defining, and that's kind of your job. And the planning manager said this, but part of what you've done in the past, in fairness, is you have had character defining things. You've had original windows you've allowed people to remove and store. You have had people alter character defining features if it was reversible. And that's what Heather had mentioned in this case. If you do deem it to be character defining, which staff does not, it can still be removed and stored at the Catholic Church, at St. Teresa's Church, as I understand it. And that way, if the structure were to become a church again and somebody wanted that particular cross, they could put that cross right back on top of the steeple. As I understand it, the only reason the cross is still there is because they didn't have anything tall enough to take it down back when it stopped being the church. It was a logistical issue. And had they had something tall enough to do it, they would have removed the cross. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear that that's sort of the two things. So even if you do find it character defining, I will remind you there's many a time when something's either reversible or stored that's been allowed to be removed.
Spike, is there room inside the louver part of the steeple to just stick the cross in there?
Yeah, it is empty inside where there's plenty of room where the bell was. So we would be able to store it inside of the louver, inside of the steeple where the louvers are, yes.
Well, and when the church deconsecrated it, it was no longer blessed and dedicated for the use of God. That's when they deconsecrated it. So I don't think that that's something that goes along with it. The Catholic Church, if they wanted it, they would have taken it. They have the ability, they have the power. I mean, the ability to do that stuff. Whether it's the original stuff, and yes, Hope, you're right. And that's where I stand from. You take windows out and you store them. Someone comes in, buys it, throws them in the garbage. That's what I talk about. Our history is getting eroded all the time. And, you know, it's been up there for more than 50 years, that cross. The original cross probably blew off in a Washoe Zephyr, but that's...
I just wanted to say in response to Mr. Block's, Commissioner Block's comment, that is true that people can come in and buy the building and things can happen. We are under covenants now with SHPO in perpetuity, so that building cannot be sold. That is a Brewery Arts Center building forever, as far as I understand it. So that is, I think, an invalid concern just because we will retain possession of the building indefinitely, in perpetuity, as they say.
Michelle Schmitter for the record, do we need to get an opinion from SHPO on this? Because they have the covenants.
No, that's a good question. The covenant with SHPO would go with any owner. So if Brewery Arts were to sell it, the covenant is still in place. And have you talked to SHPO about removing the cross?
Spike McGuire for the record. Yes, I did submit a similar request to SHPO over a month ago. I called Carla from SHPO about a week and a half ago to just check on the status of that, and she had not received it. She said, I remember you calling to ask me about it. I thought I'd get it that day. And I said, Carla, I did send it that day. She checked I believe Barracuda is the system that filters their email, and it had gotten filtered out in the Barracuda. So they have received the request. Unfortunately, they did not realize they had received the request for over a month, so they are currently reviewing it now. But yes, the paperwork has been submitted to SHPO as well.
They are separate issues.
Right, but SHPO would take jurisdiction. So to answer Member Schmitter's question.
So my question, I guess, is if the Catholic Church wanted it removed and it's not, and to them it's an artifact of their faith, then shouldn't we honor their request to remove it and have it stored in their church? I mean, it was their church to begin with, so it's their artifact, as it were.
Can I just add, I was on the board on the Brewery Arts Center for 10 years, and it was in no way conveyed that the Catholic Church wanted that cross. And that's why they left it there and they didn't take it. I made a couple phone calls about whether they still wanted it, and it doesn't seem to be important enough. They haven't called me back in the last 2 or 3 weeks, so.
I'm going to suggest that this commission focus on the guidelines from Division 5 of the Development Standards, and Heather's addressed those on pages 14 and 15 of the staff report. And really, it comes down to, in my opinion, and I think Heather's opinion, one, is this a character-defining feature, and it's a yes or no question. You look at the building, there's some things to me that it's kind of a no-brainer. The fenestration is character-defining to me. I don't find the cross to be character-defining. You may. If you get to yes on the cross being character-defining, the question is then, is it reversible if it's removed, and then can it be replaced? Or is it something that could be stored because it will still exist if you want it to be put back there? And that would be consistent with past practice.
Just when we're making this character defining, there's a fence over on Nevada and Robinson Street that I was told was character defining. But then I was told that the fence around the Wrinkle Mansion, where it had a fence around it for over 100 years, and I had the pictures, that I didn't say it was character defining, but we let that one go because someone thought it wasn't character defining in itself. So you were on Robinson, we were on that commissioner's thing. You almost hit me. No, you didn't almost hit me. You said, shh, Jed. But, you know, some of the fences are character defining, and we've done that. But, you know, and that here we are as a board, we all have our different opinions, you know, so it makes it hard.
Can I ask a hypothetical? Being the fact that the Catholic Church, obviously, and we all agree, didn't have any need or want to retain it or take it with them, it's my opinion that it falls back to the ownership of the property to do what they want, unless, of course, we decide its historical character architecturally is warranted. However, being the fact that it's, like Jed has mentioned, it's no longer part of the church, it's a symbol. So how does that differ from having been a Coca-Cola building and Pepsi comes along and buys it? Are they going to be relegated to keep the Coca-Cola sign because it's historical? Just hypothetical.
From my perspective, the photo on the upper left is the historic facade. And there was a steeple behind that also had a cross. And we've got a much more ornate cross on the original photographs. To me, the building's been compromised with the new additions. And in some respects, that cross is just a replacement. So I can see how you can call it character defining if you kind of squint and stand back and say, yeah, it's still a steeple. On the other hand, I think we could make the decision that it's no longer a character defining feature of that facade. And by storing it, we do have a means to replace it if necessary. So it is a removable feature.
Given the circumstances, that we should allow them to take it down.
Spike, how does the church that uses that on Sundays feel about taking down the cross? Have they weighed in on that?
Livingstone's is currently looking for a new location for their congregation, so I believe that they are only going to be using the building through the end of June. So I have not asked their opinion on the matter.
Michelle Schmitter for the record. I think that my biggest concern is not whether it's character defining or not, is just how we're going to remove it. Just like putting the plywood over those vents, you went into historic fabric, now we've take that off, we might have some damage. So I know you said it's easy sawzall, you're just gonna cut it. Do we have details of it?
For the record, I would like to remind the commission that the plywood over the louvers incident was well before my time with the organization. I will be discussing the matter more with Bill Miles, who has much more expertise in the construction. Well, when I brought it up originally, he said, "Well, you talk to HRC before we talk about it at all, and then we can figure out how we'll address it."
From the looks of it, Michelle, it looks like a good wind could probably take that 4x4 down right now. Any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm willing to make a motion. All right. I move to approve HRC 2024-0312, subject to the conditions of approval listed in the staff report and based on the finding that the request is consistent with the design guidelines for historic district and the Secretary of Interior standards as noted in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Any questions?
I just want to include in our findings that the cross can be removed and stored, and so it can be replaced if necessary, but if it's so it's a removable item and can be put back on the building in the future if the use changes or if public opinion changes.
For clarification, do you want that to be a condition that it's stored? Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to amend the motion to say that the cross, when it is removed, shall be stored appropriately?
Michelle Schmitter for the record. I really think that we also have to include upon